go.
All right. I said all right. Darn, I'll have to cut that out. Welcome back. We're going to look at how to construct going from a simple block with a piece of wire into it, into a detailed sculpture, stop motion puppet. We're going to look at the different fittings for doing the feet for your stop motion puppet if you wanted to make it posable. We're also going to look at magnets and how to magnetize pieces. If you watch the making of for Paranorman, you can see that you can embed magnets into your sculpts. So this is my first failed attempt years and years ago, but we'll show you that, as well as putting foam and then whatever skin you want to put on the outside of the foam. This one just has a simple felt craft fabric. We can look at knitting, doing different fabrics, leather. We can also put latex, silicone, whatever. The brass stock, which I think becomes a really important part of the class for those that want to do brass stock, allows you to put really strong inserts that slide in and out for your sculpture. So for instance, this is a simple dragon head, right? This is the first head I did for this character right here. And there's a little brass stock at the end, and that slides right into, they're all fitted just right to the next size up, and they're incredibly strong. So if you remember the first Nightmare Before Christmas, Jack Skellington's legs, I would imagine, I don't know this for certain, but I would imagine Jack Skellington's legs are made out of this stuff. This is brass stock. Right, and so the main thing you want to do with brass stock is if you order two pieces, you want to make sure that they fit. They're the next size category that goes along with the one above it. So you see there's a little wiggle room in there. If you get a brass stock piece that's perfectly fitted, woo, yes, they're all sliding inside of each other. There we go. This one's going to slide right into this one. There we go. That's a perfect, it has this like beautiful machine fitted size to it. So the brass stock we use a lot of times for hands and for heads. So if you're going to attach a heavy piece to your armature, for instance, we use this one in the examples you'll see for final. This is the mush character, little mushroom myconid character. And you'll notice that his hat, the cap, it's actually part of his body. It's not a separate hat, but it pops right off. And the paper on there that you'll see, if you want to come up above, this is actually just parchment paper to keep the wax from sticking to itself. It's not tape or anything. So this actually is removed and done when we're finished. But you'll see there's a little brass stock piece in there that's attached to the armature, which is a mesh wire that holds up the whole cap. And then same thing with this brass stock here sticking up is part of the whole body, the torso and the head and everything that goes in there. So this brass stock, if you want it to remain at a certain angle, you use the square stuff, right? And if you want it to rotate and swivel, you can use the round brass stock. And so I'm just going to introduce this to you guys. So it is an investment. They cost, for two fitted pieces, probably cost you about $12. And then, but then whenever you want to do, let me slip my head around so you can see. But then when you want to do these advanced skeletons, you're able to do it. So same thing up here. This I have a video for this, how to make this character, and you'll see the head pops right off, and there's a little piece of brass stock right in there. And there's a piece of brass stock sticking out of the skull, so his head pops right off. And this is invaluable for a lot of reasons. For mold making, if I want to cast this and make a mold and then make it out of some other material, resin or silicone, make it out of a posable material. Also, when we have these little armature stands built, the brass stock, if you use the brass stock on the ends of these, this lets you have a kind of a resting place to set your piece onto. So if there's a piece coming out of the head, I can set this piece of brass stock on my rod and set it in there. And now I have a much, much easier time if I'm working like this, right? And I'm working on the teeth and head. That's a lot easier to deal with this piece right here separately than it is working on this big giant sculpture that's, you know, over 2 feet tall that's heavy, that, you know, can be knocked over, and it just lets you get behind and into the undercuts or into areas that would be difficult to get into if everything's all at once, especially for this cap. I mean, I'm still working on the gills underneath the cap, and all those gills, I lay the cap down flat upside down. I can work on it comfortably on my lap, which is really nice. So yeah, now that I actually have this, he has a tail, like a seahorse tail, that's really detailed, and it's about 7-8 inches long. That's posable, that's bendable. But now that I have the stand, I can take that tail and I can just pop it on the stand, and that becomes a little work stand for your pieces you're working on, which is super cool to have. So in order to use brass stock, I say, and you know, when you get a couple fitted rods, one of the nice things is nothing goes to waste. Like, these pieces will last you forever. They're very durable, and you know, you're just cutting off little chunks at a time usually for the head, the hands, and things like that. If you wanted to do like a Jack Skellington character with super long stilted legs, if it's your first one, I wouldn't recommend doing it. It's just, it's gonna fall apart most likely, and you're gonna have a heck of a time. But if you want to go for it and do some really long, stilted, super skinny Jack Skellington style or Corpse Bride type characters, you would have to have the brass stock. Here's the circular brass stock. So this way, if you fit them, are these the same size? I think I grabbed two of the same size for that one. And you can measure, you know, what you need depending on what it is that you're making. You would get this particular type of brass stock, of course. So this brass stock here, you want to measure and find out which one's good for your 16th inch armature, but you can put the adhesive in there. That's going to fit in there really nicely. Oh, looks like there's something in there already. Oh no, that's because my wire's bent. Let's see. Oh yeah, it's just because the wire's bent. Which these things are also good for scraping and carving. You can actually use them as carving tools, and we'll show you how to make your own sculpting tools using brass stock and guitar wire, of all things. Let me slide by the camera just for a quick second. So that, oops, where did I put my main sculpting tools are in a little white box with guitar wire attached to them. We'll have to edit this part out. You can stop for a second.